see a world-class facility here in our backyard. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to Tim and Fred, and then if everybody in the room wants to introduce themselves and state what organization you're with, that way everybody knows each other. And I'll be sitting here in the background if you have any questions or things that you need me to jump in on. But the floor is yours, Tim.
All right. Randy, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think it'd be good if we just started with you guys introducing yourselves. I'm sure most of you know each other, but just so we kind of know who you are and which organization you're with, so we kind of understand who you're representing. So it doesn't matter where we start. So go ahead, ma'am.
Chris Spikert with Cedar Lake Little League Baseball.
Okay.
Stephen Jones, also with Cedar Lake Youth Baseball.
Alex Laraca, Cedar Lake Baseball.
Okay.
Mark Stenger, Vice President, Cedar Lake Softball.
Okay.
Christy Grady, Cedar Lake Softball.
Yep. Back there.
Innocent bystander.
Kelly Sheehan, Town Council.
Okay.
Adam Warnock, baseball, football, softball.
Everything. All right.
Julie Casada, I'm at the museum next door.
Yep.
Ray Kelly, I coach junior Wildcats, and I actually coach lacrosse too, so that could be something else this could
Sure.
work for.
Okay. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm just his Ryan.
Okay. It's your Uber right there. So, all right. Well, guys, my name's Tim Jensen. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. And I'll introduce Fred here in a second. But give you a little bit of background on who we are. I own Veritas, and we've been working with the town of Cedar Lake on some bigger idea initiatives over the past couple of years. Not consistently, but we do have some open contracts. We meet with the town manager almost every week to kind of talk through what's going on in the town and how we're advancing in the community. Our firm does a lot of things, but I think that the one that's most pertinent for tonight is we come alongside cities and towns and counties across the state of Indiana primarily and help them accomplish things that they don't know how to do, right? So if there's a big idea or a big project or something, how do we do this? So Randy kind of corralled me at the last IACT or AIM conference, which is the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns organization. Said, hey, I really want to at least get a conversation moving forward on a potential sports park. We just need to understand what that's like, what it feels like. We don't know much about it other, what it takes to get there. And I said, well, I know the guy, and our booths are right next to each other because Fred and I have done, I don't know, no less than 50 projects together, sports park projects together. I'm a civil engineer by training, so my background was really, before I started my own company, was doing all the engineering for this. Somebody mentioned before Grand Park. Fred's firm designed Grand Park in Westfield. My firm that I was with at the time did the engineering on Grand Park, and I did a lot of the engineering, the field engineering there, which is one of the areas that Fred and I connected. And since then, my firm still does some engineering, but we do a lot of different kind of projects. But again, helping cities and towns and counties really understand how to take an idea from concept and actually get it delivered at the end of the time, how that funding works, all those different pieces and parts of it. It's kind of how we make our living as an entity. Fred, you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll...
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, thanks so much for being here with us tonight. So today's kind of a fact-finding mission for us, right, to hear what the program needs for a facility might be. And then Tim and I would work in the background to try to make test fits or land plans that would achieve those goals. So we do a lot of analysis of land. So I guess a little bit about the story of Context Design. This is our 23rd year in business. I met my wife at Ball State in the early 90s. She's a landscape architect as well. I tell people a lot that means I work for her at work and I work for her at home. So we've got a really great team of people. We have a really talented group of landscape architects, sports planners, and land planners. Grand Park was mentioned. Anytime that comes up in a room, I like to make the statement that bigger is not always better, right? Obviously, having the biggest facility in the United States is not the goal for every project. You want to right size to whatever the actual programmatic need is, and we'll talk a lot about that tonight. What are needs versus wants, and trying to hear from you about what that looks like. So we've got about 130 sports projects that we've done in 23 years. We're working in 13 states on different scales of athletic development and athletic projects. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm very passionate about sports and what sports can do to create great young people. The discipline that's needed to create character is really important to us. So it's why we keep a strong hand in that marketplace. We were chatting as we walked in with a couple of you about trying to get, kind of reading the tea leaves of the types of leadership, the types of folks that you are in the room, what motivates you, how you guys make decisions about leadership as you make decisions today, and as you think about how the future evolution and growth of each of your particular programs is going, and how you forecast that need. Projects like this don't survive just my kids being in the program. They survive generations of kids being in the program. So how do you make good decisions that are well-founded there? One of those is how do you build high-quality construction so that you limit maintenance. So I'm guessing that most of you chase your tails a lot trying to figure out how to keep up with the fields, where if they're designed and engineered better, you can dramatically reduce that. And it's not a dramatic cost change to do that. It's making good engineering decisions behind that. So in projects like this, tonight, what Tim and I think we're really going to focus on with you is hearing about, are your programs growing? Are they simply stable? Might they be declining? And this is each group and each activity. Again, leadership trends, and then hearing programmatically what those needs and wants might be. With that, we'll take that information back, digest it, and start to, again, get form and plan and shape to those. So with that, Tim, if there's anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, I think before we kick off, and just turn it back over to Fred, just so you guys know, Fred spent years, he didn't tell you this, spent years coaching travel softball, so he got experience in that level with his daughters. I spent the last 12 years until 2 years ago coaching national travel basketball, so I'm a hard court guy, and so we're going to talk about hard court stuff a little bit tonight too. So this is stuff that we're not just talking about and designing. This is stuff that we've lived through, and we've been through the facilities ourselves. We clearly understand where a lot of you are coming from. Fred obviously knows the field side better. I know the hard court side a little bit better and how those things work. And I'll just tell you, tonight we're not going to necessarily get into all of the details. Right? There's going to be follow-up meetings that kind of happen after this, after we kind of hear what you guys are going to talk about and tell us. But we also have done enough of these to know and understand that not everybody in the room always gets along. Right? There's a lot of youth sports stuff that we see, actually, while it has the ability to bring communities together, in many communities we've been to, it kind of starts to tear communities apart, right? Depending on facilities and what's going on in those days and times and how that's managed and all those different things. We're not going to solve those problems tonight either, right? Whatever, if they exist, right? We're not going to solve those problems. So, but we want to hear about what our issues are, not about the people in the room, but about the programs and the things that we're experiencing so that we can work to solve some of those things. If there are parking issues of shared facilities, if there's, just whatever it is, how does that work and how does that fit into amongst seasons, and how do we run our seasons, and how many kids do we have, how many fields do we really need? So those type of the questions that Fred is going to walk you through. He's brought several exhibits, several of the ones that we've done together, some of them that we haven't done together, but of similar size and scope and feel and acreage. As Randy said, and Fred will get into this a little bit more, the town has, it's about 100 acres, I think it is, roughly about a 100-acre piece of property on the south end of town that the town already owns, right? It's been kind of putting it out there for economic development purposes. It's something they could actually sell. I know some part of it is already slated for a project, but there's going to be a significant amount of property left to do something with. And while I don't know that the town council or anybody has signed off on this being the end-all be-all use, we're not here to decide that today. There's a lot of steps to go into. It's certainly something that at least Randy and a few others have put forth and said, hey, let's talk about this as an opportunity. And if this doesn't work, then maybe we need to look at something else, right? But we're here to kind of explore all those ideas. I'm going to take a lot of notes. Fred's going to take a lot of notes. But Fred's going to lead most of this discussion from the planning effort because this is what he does every day. So I'll turn it over to him.
Are there general questions about tonight's format and the kinds of things we're going to talk about that you'd like to put on the table? And we will go group by group, by just general kind of overview things. Oh, that's the easiest group I've ever had.
We'll think of them as.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll
Wow.
Come up with.
Yeah, so the images, Tim alluded to this, there are hard copies on the table. We weren't sure how much digital.
One quick,
Yeah, sure.
just in general, because I want to think long-term, what is the expectation of how long this is going to take so I can kind of figure out, in my head?
Tonight, you mean?
No, this whole project,
Gotcha.
2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years?
You
What do you
wanna
guys
talk about
expect?
what you normally see?
I can tell you what it usually takes from the moment a community says we're ready to invest in this. I want to be absolutely clear, this is a conceptual idea. I've not been told by anyone, Randy or otherwise, that this is, it's marching forward, it's an idea. Typically, and I'll use the image that's on the screen, so the town of Brownsburg happens to be the graphics that I have on the table
Yeah.
and what's on the screen. They were looking to do a project that was on about 90 acres, again, scale somewhat similar. They were hoping to get 12 baseballs, well, 6 baseball, 6 softball for a total of 12 diamonds. They were looking to get 4 soccer fields, 2 lacrosse, 2 rugby. You can kind of go through, we'll go through those if you'd like tonight. The purpose of the images that I brought aren't to play out what you want or need, but to show what the process looks like. What's concepting look like? What's visualization? What are we going to do to kind of show the public? Most folks can't look up and read a plan. You bring 50 people in this room, only half of them are going to understand that in 2 dimensions. They don't see the world from a bird's eye view. So how do you add life to that and do it quickly without a bunch of cost? To what that visual would be. So.
How long he said?
Yeah, so typically, once Brownsburg, in this case, says, hey, we have acreage, it's normally about a year in the planning process, and then either the funding will run concurrently with that, so at the end of 12 months, you would know what you have to invest, or sometimes you get to the end of that year and you've got a vision plan and then fundraising begins. There might be a public-private partnership that happens where they ask for folks to come in. That, I can't tell you how long a public-private partnerships work, because I don't know if you'll have a benefactor that will step up and say, I want to be that person, or that company, or that naming right. But it typically will take 1 to 2 years to do that. Construction of the facility, a facility like this at about 90 acres is normally about 18 months, maybe 24, depending on what you're trying to do. So that's kind of a bookend of the answer.
So if everything was a go, you're talking 3.5 years.
Yeah, probably, typically.
Yeah, I know, because, I mean, just thinking about just projects we want to do around our field.
If it's
If
worth
it's
it.
gonna be
Sure.
worth to,
You're wasting money.
like, just in my head, just trying to think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think one thing in having coached and played in a lot of travel ball with our 3 girls, the decisions you're making about whether you're doing natural fields or synthetic is a huge difference in that rate, the pace at which you can deliver a project. As an example, anybody been to Championship Park in Kokomo? Is that something that you've seen
Yeah.
recently? So just opened this year, so 8 fields, all baseball, softball. That was turned around in 14 months from them saying, hey, we want to do this, so can you design this in 2 months, to getting it built in about 11 months, and they were playing. That's
Is it synthetic or, was it synthetic or?
Yeah, it was synthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that we could much more rapidly develop the complex. Again, I know this makes common sense, but you've got to grow in a sports turf, right? So if you're going to grow a natural field, for it to root in and be durable, it's about 9 to 12 months. So what we have a lot of times, Brownsburg is a great example of this, is folks saying, hey, you're telling me you're going to cut the ribbon on this, and it's another year before the kids can touch it, and I'm telling you, absolutely, you're going to wait, because if it's still tender, and you damage the root structure of that field, you're going to repeat and rinse and repeat and do that over and over again. So you've got to let it grow in. You've got to have a good nutrient load program to make sure that it's vigorous in its root development.
We all know what the maintenance is on natural turf, but what about synthetic turf?
Yeah,
What is,
great question.
where, or how does that work on, I'm a softball coach, so.
Yeah,
I've
so
seen it.
baseball and softball, it's stop me if I go too long. Baseball and softball is typically a split film, and what that basically means is the polypropylene fiber that creates that, so it's almost indestructible in today's marketplace. The state of the technology is really good. You're going to get about 7 to 10 years out of a life of a field right now, depending
That's what
on
I
how
was looking
heavily
for.
it's used.
But then you just have to replace the surface when it's wore?
Yeah, so when you build the system, that system is going to be good for at least 20 to 30 years. So I think drainage infrastructure,
Right.
aggregate bases, choker layers, all that stuff.
Yep.
The carpet that goes on
Yep.
the top is really the only place you're
That's
seeing
what I
the
was-
wear, right? So in baseball and softball, you would expect in the sliding zones and in home plate
Pitcher
to
mount.
need to recycle. So as an example, when we did the Grand Park project,
Right.
we were expecting to get 10 years of life out of that turf. So we actually had, in the batter's circle,
Right.
for every field, we had 10 units of the batter's circle in attic stock for every field, right?
Okay.
So you could just peel that up at the
And
end
put
of
it
year
on-
one, drop a batter circle in, so you're not taking
Tearing
the
everything
peel
off.
offline. It's literally Velcroed in.
Okay.
Now, it's about 1,200 pounds of sand and rubber in that. It's not moving, right?
Now, does that work the same for the pitcher's mounds?
Yeah, you can do the same thing for the
Because
pitcher's
that's
mount.
obviously a lot of work.
What's more common right now in baseball is to use portable mounds. Really, the reason you do that, again, Brownsburg is a 12-field complex. They were all 225-foot diamonds that you could set a 200-foot temporary fence for softball. So you could run a 12-field softball tournament or a 12-field baseball tournament, or if it's youth rec league and you could do it 6-6 and you play just like it was.
That's gonna be one question I have to you, since you're a softball guy. How many times have you been to a park where it's men's league fields, depth fence, and they have the portable fences? I hate those fields.
Yeah, portable fences are not typical right now. You see a lot of commitment. So softball, there's a huge deficit, especially in the Midwest, but nationally, there's a deficit in a number of softball fields that are available for
Yes.
play. So you see tournaments really being drawn to facilities that are built for softball, right? Baseball's got a little bit better coverage, but softball's really, again,
I hate
behind.
those type of fields. I hate that fence.
Yep. So it really depends on the age of the tournament that you're seeking. The other question that I think, and again, I'm not gonna point to any one of you, the real important part to us and how you develop and plan for a facility is understanding if it's an economic development project or whether it's a youth sports and recreational sports project. That could be some of both. It's not an exclusive question.
Explain that.
But understanding the balance of that's really important to a counselor or anybody who's gonna vote to fund a project, right? Is it gonna create activity and revenue to support itself? Or is this something that not only the capital costs, let's say it costs $10 to build this, do I need to spend $2 more every year to maintain it? Is that the kind of revenue that we're expecting? Or does it need to be able to generate enough revenue to pay for its operations and its maintenance? That's a really, really important question. If you had a field house project, we were just talking about this on the way up. If you had a field house project, say it's a building, right, so it's 365 days a year. But the question is, it costs $10 to build it. But does the youth league locally need it Monday through Thursday? And on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you're gonna have tournaments that draw in revenue? Or is it a hybrid, where every other weekend, we've gotta have it during the week? Does that make sense? Those aren't decisions we can solve today. But it's thinking about how do you generate activity and revenue, and is this a local project?
Hey, Fred?
Yeah, Randy?
Yeah, in discussing this with my fellow council members, we do have a vision that there is an economic development piece to this that is necessary for the sustainability of it. Looking at if you're gonna have tournaments and things like that, you're gonna need lodging, you're gonna need amenities like restaurants and other sorts of things. So there's an opportunity there to leverage some economic development as a way to sustain the project. But the initial seed money of this thing, I had a conversation with our financial advisor at O.W. Crone, and we are creating a park board again starting next year, and we will have about $4 million conservatively in debt that we could issue. That's just conservative estimate, as well as well over $1 million in park impact fee dollars available. So we've got about $5 million of seed money that we could execute pretty quickly, should this project take off, and then obviously some of the larger parts of it we would have to take that economic development approach to fill that project out.
Very well, thank you for that. I forgot you were listening in for a moment. My apologies.
I'm normally not this quiet.
We know.
I thought we had you muted, so,
Nice try.
yeah. All right, so I tell you what, in no particular order, maybe we'll just start here, Chris, in the front row, and kind of hear what baseball, and maybe march around the room. The kinds of questions, just again to reiterate, is your program growing? Is it stable? And this is participation. Is it growing? Is it stable? Is it perhaps declining? What kind of trends are you seeing with leadership? And what do you think, how many fields do you have now? What kind of condition are they in? And what do you feel like the need versus want looks like?
Yeah. All right, so currently, last 2 years ago, we had 150 members with COVID year. That was actually an uptick from the prior year of 125.
Okay.
This past year, we went up to 225, well, maybe a couple over that, 225. And we actually had to turn some T-ballers away, because we had not enough volunteer coaching, and I don't want to put 12 kids on a team for T-ball, that's like per sheet.
Yeah.
I will tell you, thank you for Randy and the rest of the town for, at least considering the youth of Cedar Lake, because a big part of the reason why our membership doesn't continue to grow is because we are sandwiched between two towns that have state-of-the-art facilities, and they play fall ball in Crown Point, St. John, and never come back.
Yeah.
There's probably, 50, 60 kids that probably play in the surrounding towns, and it's mostly the
Younger ones,
and some of the better kids move out of town because of, yeah.
I will tell you, most of our membership is at the lower levels, T-ball and minor B, which is like 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Most of the older kids, once they hit about 8 or 9 years, they're already considering going to travel, so we do lose a lot of teams there. It's very, how do I say, encouraging that it's all at the bottom and the town is growing. We can kind of project out that in the next 3 years, if we don't have extra fields, we are going to be in a real stressful situation, both with the parking lot and with field resources. We could open up we only play on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, Saturdays, or whatever, we play 2 nights a week. We could go full-time. Unfortunately, we have very limited volunteers to be able to hold the concession stand open every night, be able to find umpires and all that other stuff. So, being able to have a facility would ramp up, I think, membership from other people going to, playing Crown Point, going and travel, because they can say, oh, I travel with our newly formed organization, the Cyclones, and when we'll play there, so I can play on those nice fields. But any decision that we make as a board, I'll speak for me, any decision I ever make, the kids first, the Cedar Lake first, before I even head myself out. Any travel ball organization, we have to obviously utilize that space and have the tournaments. That's why we formed an organization, so that we would actually be represented there. But I would hope that the kids that we are playing in our town would actually be able to utilize the fields and not be just, we got a team coming in, at least one field where we can play on the weekends, and not just, we only play there during the week because travel ball takes over. That's just me, because I really feel like, the kids in this town deserve better. They do. So,
How many fields do you use now?
We have 4 fields, and the field space is one of our biggest issues. We had 10 T-ball teams last year, and finding time to first off play 2 games a week and then try to practice once a week, it's almost impossible. And it doesn't have lights. 2 of our fields have lights. Our Babe Ruth field, our big field, does not currently have lights. So that's one of the problems too, is, we run into issues with just having enough field space and time on those fields. And our fields were built in 1974, so they are in very good shape. Thanks to everybody in the past, they've done a great job. Everyone has done a great job of upkeeping the fields, but they are showing their age at this point,
Under drained or not?
They hold water pretty good. Most towns, they can't play. I would say we always, we can play. It has to really be a downpour, or like 20 minutes, half hour before game before we call it where we can't go to real work.
We have nice
They maintain pretty well.
So you mentioned having struggles with whether it's coaches or umpires, what have you. Is that a COVID moment, or do you think that
No, but the umpire issue is a whole Cedar Lake, St. John, Crown Point, everywhere we play, it's just not a lot of umpires out there because there's just it's a craft. None of the youth are moving up to umpire at them.
It's softball also.
That's
It's
a,
all
We're saying the
softball.
same
It's
thing.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
There's so many
Yeah.
travel organizations that there's so many more games, and if you don't get out there early and get your umpires, you're just gonna have a real struggle
Sure.
with that. So we have to do better as an organization to build up some of the teenagers and move them through the ranks.
I think we're competing with the closer towns too that have much bigger programs that have them kind of locked in.
They pay the umps more money, that's.
Well, we pay
We pay
too
the
much.
same price.
Yeah, I know, it's been increasing every.
We have
to,
People like
keep
that,
up.
yeah.
We have to.
I think our program was in a decline, but I think it's in an upward tick now because we are offering better quality, better coaching, travel ball, which we've implemented into our program within the last year. This will be our first full year going into this year, and I think it's growing, which is good. Problem is our parking, umpires, things like that.
You know, what's your total parking capacity today?
I do.
Yeah, we have 50 in ours, and then we share with softball
What is that?
The town
yeah,
park.
the town lot.
Hold on, we have 39.
Oh, 39.
39.
Just to the north of us, it's actually an easement, which is parking, which is to the north of our majors fields, has 11. That would be 50, if that's the 50 you're talking about. That's actually park owned. And the park has 37 spots, which is all in one area, adjacent in between softball and Little League.
Parking in the easement, is it paved at all? Or is
It is paved.
Okay.
You guys own your fields?
Yes.
So Little League owns them?
Yes.
So having sat through a lot of these meetings, I can tell you that the folks that would sit up here and ask questions are gonna ask how you solve your umpire volunteer questions. Anytime somebody's gonna put money behind a project, they're gonna wanna see the plan for the weaknesses, so I know you know that.
There's resources we can tap into that
We're
we
trying
haven't
to
utilized in
solve
the past. There's umpire finders which we haven't used. I think scheduling earlier with our surrounding towns to get those umpires secured before they get their schedules booked would help too. And I actually talked to the District 1 administrator about coming out to our fields to have umpire clinics to train some of the 12, 13, 14-year-olds to see if we can, get enough of them that can at least do, to where they can be comfortable enough to manage the field environment. So he's gonna come out and I think February or March, whenever we get the fields up and running, and have a clinic so that we can hopefully, encourage some of our youngsters to get involved in that.
We've gone through a few regime changes within the last 3-4 years, and we have kind of a new board, some old, but I think it's a more stable board and more aggressive, maybe, board that are looking to make things better than where it might have been.
We're offering things like, giving money off initial fees to have parents come on to coaches. So we're trying some new mechanisms to bring in some more coaches and people to help out, volunteers.
You mentioned your board and so how many people are on your board? Columbia West?
There was 11 now.
Okay. Do you see, you mentioned regime changes, which reminded me to make sure we touched on that leadership trends. Do you see folks staying on a board until their kids age out of your program, or do you see any consistency in some of those people that might survive their kids moving through the program, or perhaps come back as folks that, whether they're retired or
I see
just have more time?
now that some would stay a little longer. I personally don't even have a kid in the program. I've actually been involved in the league for almost 30 years now. Took some time off, back into it, retired, love doing it.
And I will tell you, I'm newly born president this year, but I've been kind of the right-hand person of the last 2 presidents, and I've
Right.
kind of been the
You've
man
been-
behind the scenes running it. Chris is now kind of take the lead as far as managing meetings and stuff like that, so that I can focus on building the travel program, meeting with districts, for Little League, and then thinking about ideas on how we can grow our brand so that we can compete with other towns. We have a lot of, people that are bringing ideas. Me personally, I've been in the league, you know, I've coached 2-3 teams every year, been on the board, I'm fully dedicated to what's best for these kids. I would stick around, even though my kids are pretty close to aging out of the league, just because I want to make sure that it's in a good spot by the time I, you know, leave, or I'll always be around to assist in any way.
What is your oldest team?
15U?
15U?
No.
Oh, we
We had the 16,
the one,
18-year-old
yeah,
team
this
last
year.
Or did you? Okay, I'm just,
we had a
In the past, we used to have the, big league and little league, they called
Okay.
it. But over the years, we've lost that and trying to rebuild that back.
okay. But you're carrying the high school level.
yeah.
Okay.
What's your biggest weakness?
No.
Parking.
Parking. I think volunteerism from non-board members, parking, I would say umpires is definitely a key thing. And I think if I look in the next 3 years, like I mentioned, field resources is gonna be huge. I really think, I can see the growth, and I know the town's growing. I think word is getting out that we're
Growing.
on the up, that we have a good thing going here. We're trying to do a lot more, family-oriented stuff and really grow the product. I think word's getting out, we're
Okay.
gonna compete with other towns.
So last question, we're gonna pivot to softball. Little League affiliation, feel good about it? It's like a strong affiliation, is that something
Getting
that,
better.
I would tell you, I was around with the Cal Ripken regime. There's some things that I loved about Cal Ripken, as far as, we were open to play anybody, as far as there was no restrictions on who we could play. Unfortunately, nobody wanted to play them, because Crown Point's too big. St. John basically wanted us to sign their kids up in their league and wear their uniform. I was like, okay, no, that. Little League's a little more structured, so we can't just go out and play Chris over in St. John, playing in Cal Ripken. I think it was the best decision we made as far as moving over for the time we needed to do it, because it allowed us to kind of introduce them a little bit to the travel ball scene a little bit, like
Cool.
interleaguing with other towns.
thanks for all that information. It's really helpful. And you softball?
Yeah.
Yeah,
My name is Mark Stenger. I've been with this league since '94. I had 2 daughters go through it. That league was founded by we own our own park. We have 4 fields, 2 lit fields, Musco lighting. Everything we do is top notch. It's 2 lit. 2 full 200-foot fields lit. I've been through that whole program from day one, '94, when we had no storage. We built extra fields. We had a lot of manpower, a lot of volunteers, good old people that stuck around. We've had the 2 ladies that founded that league, they're gone now. They put their houses up for collateral to buy the property. Joan Torrance and Shirley Moody. I was very close with Shirley. She accounted for every penny of this park. So I take a lot of pride in this park. I live my life at this park, just like Alex lives at the Little League. He lives right there. Water drainage is pretty good. We've always put tile in when necessary. We have our own maintenance, lawn maintenance that cuts the grass. We pay for that ourselves. We pay for everything. We're self-sufficient. We have to bust a lot of rare to do it. Since 2015, or 2013 maybe it was, when Shirley passed, we've gone through board changes, and we had a situation, we had as many as 166 kids in the program when Jessica was there.
Yeah.
We had a situation where President was stealing. It hurt our league. It has considerably dropped. That was the same year we started our travel program. We have now a travel program called Riptide. We had 8 teams that year in just travel ball alone. And we made it work. We refurbished our barn, so we got hitting cages. We use it in the wintertime. The property is very utilized. Big issues, kind of like what Little League says, parking. But neighbors, parking in the subdivision's tough. I think our parking lot's probably a little bigger than your guys', if I'm not mistaken. We do share the Hanover Park. We all know that, I think most of us in this room know that there's a situation where the president had stole money that had caused our league to collapse, not collapse, but drop down. We have worked very hard to rebuild this, and now we're back on the rebuild. So we have, what did we have this year for rec league alone?
125.
125 kids, plus we went from 8 teams to 4 travel teams right now. Very selective on that. A lot of people didn't want to come to us because of what happened. Moving forward, we're rebuilding the situation. The school system, the town, the referendum, we see the bills, the growth going on. I grew up here. I know what's going on. Like, as Randy said, have we outgrown our park? We need more than 4 fields, hands down. Have we made it work? Yes, we have. It's been difficult. Do we want our park to leave? No, we're going to keep our park. Would we like to see a new facility built to help this community for other sports, football, soccer, baseball, you name it? Absolutely. Would I like to see our program go to a new complex? Sure, absolutely. Use ours for practices, our Riptide program. There's a lot of heart in that park that we have. I consider our parks, both of ours parks, to be some of the best. Like he said, you can't play in a park because of rain, we can. I can have our fields ready in no time, because we have good proper drainage, because we've hand-built those parks. Weaknesses, umpires, like they said, we're taking our younger generation kids and trying to get them involved with our younger girls, having them umpire, going umpire schools.
Yeah, we've had a lot of our 16U team now coming up for the 8U games.
8, 10U games. Do we always need volunteer help? Yes, we do, all the time. I mean, I live at the park. I don't plan on going over. How long am I going to be there? I'll be there forever. You'll have to bury me before I leave.
It's not on the agenda.
I know. But some of the other members, as I've been pushing Christie, she just got elected again for a couple more years. I think we got a core group that is going to be sticking around for a while, finally. We went through a rough time here.
How long ago was that?
2019.
As a matter of fact, there's a sentencing tomorrow morning I'm going to be at. It's been postponed 5 times to the tune of over 70 grand. So it's been hard for me, because I knew how Mrs. Bowie penny pinched to have the park that we have. Parking has been a big issue at our park. Not going to deny that. We try to get along with our neighbors. We try to do what we can. There's been numerous times that Little League and I have worked together us and Little League have worked together trying to solve parking issues. We can't do nothing about it. I mean, we have, Little League and softball have provided this for these kids forever and ever. Everybody's rode on our shirt tails. The town, I'm glad that, I thank Randy for stepping up. It's time. They need to help us. They need to do something to get something set for these kids. And if we're going to do this, I'd like to see it done and done right, as I do in our park. When I work on our park and spend money, I don't want to spend the most amount of money, but I want to do it right, because I don't want to live there doing maintenance. I enjoy coaching.
Yeah, you asked the question earlier about maintenance, and essentially with synthetic fields here, you've got a grooming equipment, right? Pulling with a gator or something.
Right. I mean,
golf cart will do it, but.
Oh, you mean like with a UTV with a broom? That's what I found.
Yeah, so that's predominantly you're looking at most weekly. Typically, you say twice a month, so every 2 weeks.
Just run over with it's what they call parking lot broom
So
sweeper.
broom drag. I mean, And they make them that come with, they'll pick up the litter into, basically a tray. So you
Tray.
literally just dump that, you're not
Sure.
chasing that, but, yeah.
I mean, we were there
it's
yesterday
dramatic.
working, put sand mix down in 2 fields, because it was 50 degrees, I had it delivered, we did it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get volunteers.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you've coached travel ball, you know what it's like. That's why I question the baseball fields, the men fields. Like Crown Point has, on 80 acres, they have 10 fields there.
Yeah.
I can't stand the 300, 400 feet fields for the girls, I think it's ridiculous. And they put the fake fences up, it's just, you know, Grand Park, what do they got, separate fields for baseball and softball?
Yeah, there's 26 diamonds at Grand Park, there's plenty of room to
Crazy.
go around. So,
26 diamonds.
there's 16 youth and
How many acres does that circumference?
400 acres in total, 200 for baseball, softball, 200 for soccer.
Wow. Well, do I see our growth, or see our program expanding because of the growth that's coming into the town?
Mhm.
You drive around, you see all the subdivisions, a lot of young people with young kids.
Yep.
Especially with the school additions going on, have we outgrown our park? We could use a couple more fields for sure.
That's a question I skipped with baseball too. So softball, you need 6, is that what you need?
We actually, so let's go this route. I don't know what size Crown Point is, but they have 10 fields and they have a rec program and they use all the time. Do I need 10 fields? I'd take 10 fields all day. That's not what I'm asking for.
Yeah, there's a needs
What would-
and wants question.
Right, I get it.
Sure.
6 fields at this point in time would probably be good. We have 4 fields right now, and with the tournaments that we host, we're kind of limited because we have 2 big fields and 2 small fields. If we had a 3rd big field, our tournaments would be
Again,
much.
with the lights too.
Again, with lights, it would be.
Obviously, lights and parking are prerequisites. You can build 100 softball
Right.
fields if you can only park 30 people, right? You
Right.
still have a limit, so.
So, would 6 suffice us? Sure, it would, absolutely. 6 would get us by for, I can't tell you how many years. I could tell you that we've gotten by on 3 fields for, up until 2013. Shirley passed, we had already built field 4. We built another little girls field, no lights. And we've got 4 fields that we've been using since 2013, 14, something like that. And we are in need of a couple more fields.
What's the answer from baseball? You guys mentioned the fields you have today. What's the need as you see it?
Yeah, I mean, we've already decided we're putting in another field,
So
probably
you're going
behind it.
5.
We're gonna go to a 5th field just because of our T-ball program, you know, it's 90, and we could probably do 120 if we wanted to. So, I'd say we probably need at least 5 more. I mean, if we had 5 fields that we could have practices on, practicing in our facility, practicing on their facilities, kind of like what St. John has. They have 2 different parks where they can have practices here, games here, vice versa. So, maybe,
So 5 for games plus practice, whatever that
Yeah.
equates to.
so 4 to 5 probably, I'd say, if we had 4 to 5 in a facility here and then our facility for practicing and that's probably.
And I never thought about it that way too, we're at our facility.
Yeah.
We would have 4 also, provided we're keeping that, we're not planning on going anywhere, then, exactly.
Same here, we're not.
Same here, right,
We're
I
not going
agree.
anywhere.
The only thing I wanted to add as far as,
Yeah, absolutely.
when I
I'll be
spoke
buried.
about one of our weaknesses
That's
being,
you, just
Right.
a field away.
one of our weaknesses being volunteerism. The one thing you can project is as you add more people into the system, you add 50 people, within that pot of 50, you're gonna get 5 or 6 naturally service-oriented individuals that want to help, and we do see that. It's just the coaching. I don't know if we gotta get a better message across on what the time commitment is for T-ball, or I think they're a little afraid or hesitant to dip that toe in the water.
Yeah.
We gotta.
We're gonna be doing some coaching clinics this spring.
Teach them
So
up
we're
a
gonna
little
be
bit.
coaching the kids. We're gonna hopefully get high school involved, the high school coach maybe if we can get Alex involved. You know, he's been coaching for 30 years now. So get these people into a room with our coaches and start teaching them how to coach, because that's the problem. A lot of our people come on, they don't know anything how to coach, so, that's part of the issue too, is just bringing them up and teaching them how to coach. So
Yeah,
that-
some confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I couldn't get enough running Optimus softball, I decided to run Optimus baseball at the same time, or Optimus basketball at the same time. And thank God my wife is patient. The biggest thing that we did, just, we got the varsity basketball coach and both girls and boys involved in training the coaches, and they would come out, they were almost like celebrities in a small town, right?
Mhm.
So the coaches would get engaged and feel like they were contributing to the whole of the growth of the kids, not just at 6 or 7 or 8 years old, but they could forecast them being 15 and 16 and 17. They took it a lot more seriously. I was really surprised when I started doing that almost 10 years ago now, how much change that built in the commitment to being good quality leaders and role models and coaching in the ways that the varsity coaches wanted to see the kids.
Helps their future too.
So,
Well, Fred, we were a big partnership with the high school in Hanover. The coach that's had softball there that instilled it in Hanover, Larry McMillan, is retired. He was our vice president for years. He helped build our park. So we were a huge feeder program for Hanover, and we still feel we are. We've had a couple, as time goes on and as you get older, your coaching skills diminish unless you're willing to step up and do. Well, when we got a new coach at Hanover, he stepped up and did a coaches clinic, and a lot of the people loved it.
Yeah.
Because
it matters.
new stuff, right? So, with that being said, I agree with them guys, the coaching clinics, definitely get good quality coaching clinics, you're gonna get better quality parents that coach, or better parents.
Very well. Want to jump into Wildcats?
You on the board.
Do it.
Over the last 7 years being involved, we've had to rent multiple facilities, including the school system. We have to rent their fields and facilities and for field maintenance, stuff like that. So it's a self-funded program, and it'd be nice not to have to pay out tens of thousands of dollars yearly in rental space, porta potties, janitorial, stuff like that. So, practice fields, let's see, there's 5 teams from ages 5 to, what, 13?
13, yeah.
Yeah, 5 teams between the ages of 5 to 13, plus your cheerleaders, which there's, the same thing, 5 teams of cheerleading. So, you need quite a bit of space. Usually, we don't use the game field for practices. We have a pretty uneven surface field on the backside
Have a field.
of a field.
It is, it's a patch of grass that, as a coach, before practice, I gotta go out and put cones down where there's holes.
The hazards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question
I've never
for
seen
you.
that before.
With them building over there, does that take away from your guys' schedule?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I drove by the thing, I'm like. not
Well,
to say
we,
that, like, it's
normally
hard
where
to
we
figure out
practice,
what's
we had to move up to the parking lot where it's the steep,
Yes.
go into the football field.
Yeah.
So the kids learn how to run uphill.
That makes it fun.
Hey, Adam, it's funny to hear you guys talking about the maintenance of fields, because I was on Coach LaRocca's first team that he coached in Cedar Lake, and I think we spent the first 2 weeks of practice with rakes and shovels in our hands, if I remember.
Still do it.
Still do it to this day.
Now they gotta upgrade the garbages.
You guys taught us well.
Yeah, I got a heck of a landscaping, education, and then we had to figure out how to take batting practice afterwards.
With a broomstick.
You hit the rocks you picked up.
That's what I did as a kid.
So,
Bring a guardrail.
you know, you need two practice fields and then 1 game field.
That's the need.
That's the need.
Yeah, 2 plus 1.
But, you know, depending on if you combine the soccer and football together, the practices are usually held 5 to 7:30, 5:30, 7:30, 5:30, 8. 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, and then games are held on Sundays. So, I mean, if you were to combine the soccer facilities, and you could probably do it, you wouldn't need its own field for soccer and football. Never played lacrosse, so I can't answer that question.
I can play soccer.
Never played soccer either. I just know that a lot of the AstroTurf fields now are combined
Yeah.
with, on the football field with the paint markings and stuff like that, so.
But Adam, with the town growing, what about, the future, with the amount of people coming in, do you guys think?
I mean, right now we use about 130-yard field, and we divide it up amongst 5 teams. So we, 30 yards each team, and then whatever 30 yards wide for practices.
This year, one of the big coaches' comments when you were practicing, don't run through their practice. Don't run through their practice. We had a situation, I had 7, 8, 9-year-olds. We were running a practice. One of our tiny mics, coach made them run. He came through our field, and before I could blow the whistle, one of my kids chucked him. Fortunately, he popped up, and the coach is like, that's why you don't run through their field. So it was a tight fit for
So I
football this
had
year.
the 13-year-olds, so I had the big boys this year, and, but I think of 2 practice fields between the 5 teams, and then, the game field, and then letting the cheerleaders actually practice on a flat surface.
Yeah.
But they can even use the game field, or if you put some kind of a track around the football field.
Yeah.
And that would simulate their game day status. Because we don't have the domes yet for indoor football, so get them acclimated to the weather and what it's like standing on an asphalted track. It's what they deal with weekly, so.
Yeah. How many kids in the program?
300 and, just under 350 kids, 330 I think it was. That's between cheer and football.
You know how that splits out between those two? Is it relatively even, or is it?
It's actually pretty close to being even.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of multi-sport family. I have a daughter in cheer and a son in football, and then I have another son that's gonna be coming up playing football as well, so.
Has that 330 been roughly stable, or is
Oh,
it
yeah.
growing?
7 years in the program, I've never seen it under 280.
Okay, so not necessarily growing, but stable.
Stable. But at the same time, we're competing against Crown Point, Junior Bulldogs. Now we're competing against Tri-Town Raiders being removed from their facility, coming into the Hanover Township area at Klein and 231 at the newest sports complex they're building. So it's time we step up and.
Last year, we only had 4 teams, right?
No, we have 5.
Didn't we have 5 last year?
Not to mention, they gotta compete with kids that wanna play for the middle school only. So there's an age where they play 6th grade, right? They can go to middle school.
At 6th grade, they can go play for the middle school, but a lot of the parents realize that little Johnny's not gonna be the all-star of the middle school, so they keep them down one more year until they get to the 7th grade level.
Gotcha.
And they can get more playing time, so usually 6th grade going into 7th is the cutoff. And we can go up to a 14U or a 15U team, but you only get 2 or 3 kids that don't wanna play for the middle school, so.
How many people on your board?
There was 9.
Good group, stable, change, what's the leadership?
Change,
Pretty consistent
and even
change.
more changing,
Aging out of the program typically.
yeah. Trying not to laugh too hard, Chris.
I know, I'm sorry.
All right, soccer?
Lacrosse.
I know.
Nobody Nobody from soccer? You guys have a local soccer program?
There
was
We
a-
had
was-
a town program,
Yeah.
the town put it on for, and then COVID hit and we haven't had it anymore.
Gotcha.
But I believe that the enrollment was somewhere around 200.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you much more detail about
That was 2
it.
years ago, though, right?
But it's been 2 years without.
I bet
So
it's
we're
prob-
hoping to bring it back this year.
A lot more.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
we,
kids coming in
it
the
should be
program.
back this spring.
Just for clarification on the synthetic, is it full synthetic or is it synthetic transition to grass?
I'm sorry, I was type singing.
Synthetic, is it full synthetic all the way out, or is it synthetic and then the outfield's grass?
At a specific project, did you?
I'm asking, when you say synthetic field,
Yeah, so we do
Infield's
both
is it
ways.
infield synthetic and then
We do it both
transition
ways.
to grass?
Yeah, do both ways. So, yeah, some folks, it's a budgetary decision. I spent the first 2 hours of the day on a school at Columbus North and Columbus East High School. They're trying to figure out how to do some synthetic on baseball and softball.
The only reason why I ask is because, I mean, the Kokomo ones, those are full
Those
synthetic.
are full synthetic.
Because we played Crown Point this past
I don't like that trendy.
fall over there, it was synthetic infield,
Perfect.
but the grass hasn't fully
Yeah.
settled in the outfield, so there was a little bit of roughness there, and they just need to rework it.
A little bit dangerous
Summer
in the
versus-
transition.
They don't have an exposed curb, I assume, right? They've wrapped it.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah, so a hybrid for baseball, a hybrid is really more common to have the infield only. Softball, typically, you'll do the whole field. It's not big enough to be cost prohibitive. I say that like money grows on trees, like it's still expensive, but a softball field is normally attainable. So right now, so as an example, so a high school football field, inside the D zones is typically about 88 to 90,000 square feet. Turf's roughly about $10 a foot, so it's about $900,000 to do a high school football field. We go through this morning. Columbus East says, how much is my baseball field? And I said, it's about $1.1 million, and I thought they were gonna choke. They said, it's not possible that it costs more than the high school football field, and I said, yes, it does, because it's bigger than the high school football field. No one really thinks about that. From a square footage of total area, a full-size high school field is significantly bigger. It's almost 20% bigger than what's inside of your track at your high school. So that's why you see infields only on baseball diamonds is it's about $450,000 to do the infield.
What does it roughly cost to do a softball?
It's about $450,000. They're very close.
To do a complete infield to outfield, about $450,000?
The total, yeah.
I'm
That
just
that
curious.
differential in cost between the synthetic and natural, I mean, obviously the synthetic is more expensive, but in a yearly, 5-year span, does it kind of equal itself out, or
How long does it take to pay that
in
off?
maintenance, or?
You know what I mean, as far as
Oh, I
fertilization,
know
grass
exactly what you
cutting?
mean. So, yeah, I just did the Indiana Parks and Rec Conference in Muncie just 2 weeks ago. I just did an hour-long session on life cycle costs of natural and synthetic. I won't do the hour and 15 minutes for you.
Right.
The short version is synthetic never pays for itself. Like, there are some vendors, some salespeople that will
Tell you.
go around telling you, the reduced maintenance pays for itself. I can show you Excel spreadsheets that we've
That's
done
what I
over
was
and over
kinda
again. It doesn't
meaning,
pay for itself. But it does knock that down to about 2/3 of it is recoverable, right? So then if you're a council member or you're helping fund a project, somebody says, okay, it might cost 4 times more to do it in synthetic on my first cost, my capital cost.
Right.
But when you measure it over 15 or 20 years, all of a sudden, 2/3 of it has been recovered from a reduced maintenance, right? That really matters. Now, let's talk about economic development for a minute. So the worst thing you can do when you're trying to have a tournament facility is to cancel a tournament, because those teams will never come back. You can't bring people from Iowa and Charlotte and, Pittsburgh and have them drive in for a big tournament and then say, I'm sorry, my fields aren't going to be playable, because you'll never get those people to come back. So if economic development is a critical piece of any project, this one or otherwise, you have to make some decisions, surfacing decisions in and around that. Now, you might do natural, but we're going to need to be really careful about what the root zone media is and what the underdrain system is and how you manage the moisture content of that facility. Not just for your maintenance ease, but, how much delay is acceptable. Is an hour? Is 2 hours? You know, you go beyond 2 hours, you're canceling multiple games, right? So you gotta make those technical decisions when it's time to engineer. But when we go to coach, you know, a community or the stakeholders or the council members or the mayor, what have you, town manager, those are the kinds of cost recovery decisions that are gonna be real important.
Difference in price between natural and synthetic is what again?
It depends on the quality of the construction, but in general, it's about 3.5 to 4 times more to do synthetic, right? So you won't, to a high school ball diamond right now, at the best level of construction, you're probably in the 380 range, but you might spend 1.2 million to get that done in synthetic.
Problem with that is, like, I want to use Crown Point as an example. The maintenance and the way they take care of it is so much different than us two guys can admit. We take care of our park so much differently, and fields are playable, grass is always cut. You go there, you're fighting the park system, you can't get nobody there.
Yeah.
Sometimes better to go with the better product and less maintenance than it is to.
Agreed.
I mean, it depends on what the city wants to spend.
The one thing that's really, really critical in the capital cost of fields like this, when you decide that if you decide you are going to do synthetic, is the cost reduction, the volume cost of turf drops dramatically. So if we're gonna go out and do one field, right, the price is $10 a foot, but if I add a second or third field, all of a sudden that price is $7.80 or $8 a foot. It is a dramatic savings, right? So if you're gonna do 10 fields and you cut 22-24% off that cost, you saved millions and millions of dollars. So volume matters. You wouldn't wanna build one field at a time. That would be a terrible financial decision. But thinking about those cost savings opportunities, I think, is important. I know
Yeah, all of our fields don't need, I mean, T-ball fields, you don't really need synthetic, so, but the bigger fields,
Making
the one
smart
that,
decisions.
the one that you want, the ones that you want to have tournaments on, those are the ones that you probably want.
And I wanna make sure that I say this right now so I don't forget to say it. There is nothing wrong with the natural field. We have designed, and I mentioned we've done 130 projects. They've almost been exactly 50% synthetic and 50% natural. There is nothing wrong with natural fields.
Yeah, I was gonna say, some of the tournaments out there, they'll have pool play or some of your lesser games, the playoff games on the non-synthetic natural field. And then the big games, the big show are the synthetic for all age groups.
Absolutely. So the soccer we mentioned, roughly 200 kids. It's obviously been on ice for a little bit. Was it stable in its, how long had it been going on?
Years.
Okay.
It was going on for years, and I would say, yeah.
Pretty stable. And that was just right up here on the.
Right here in
Yeah.
town grounds, yeah.
Is there the same kind of competition in your neighboring communities that there is with all the other sports that we just heard?
I honestly don't know. I didn't
Okay.
run the program or anything, so I couldn't.
They did in-house, their soccer program was in-house.
Okay. Run by the town
Yeah, there's
staff?
a local Dyer has when they have the,
They didn't travel and they didn't have like people coming in
No.
and playing, they just did like an in-house program.
Yeah.
They kept the, age groups, split the age groups in half.
No, but with the town growing the way it is, I could see that changing.
Mhm.
I could definitely see that changing. Because the town has definitely grown to the point where they had to get a referendum, expand schools.
Yeah.
Because of the young kids that are coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the kids now are probably going to play in Sugarville or Dyer.
Because there's nothing here.
Ileana also has
Yeah.
the one over at the conference grounds, they use those fields, they have
Oh, yeah.
2 fields that they have
Right.
over there, so they also hold within Cedar Lake limits. So there's definitely probably even more than we're even thinking.
Parking for soccer was between the lighthouse and just town, is that
Just start
adequate?
parking up over here and up in the grass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 fields, is it 3?
I don't know, I was always busy when I drove by up there.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask a question of Randy? Randy, can you hear me? Is he sleeping?
Randy, can you hear Mark?
Yep, I gotcha.
Randy, can I ask a question out? Are you guys planning on using the whole 100 acres for this complex?
So, we've got about 40 acres that we have to use for the dewatering facility for the lake dredging project. Total acreage we have there is about 114. So the rest of it that's not being used for dewatering would be available for this complex. Once the dewatering facility has served its purpose, I want to say it has to sit for about 3 years, then it could also be reclaimed and utilized for any sort of expansion to the complex that we might see necessary.
Does that product stay on the, property at that time, or does it get removed?
It's actually a pretty valuable product. Once it has time to settle, it has some value, so it'll probably end up being removed and sold as like a topsoil and fertilizer type of
Okay.
a product, so, yeah, it'll probably be remediated at that point.
So you're saying roughly just under 80 acres is available for a sports complex?
Yeah, in that ballpark right now, Mark.
Okay.
That's why I like how you guys were talking from a scale standpoint, and what Fred said earlier is, it's not, you know, not everywhere can build a grand park or what they're doing in Brownsburg. We gotta do something that fits our community, and, I think there's a ton of good ideas being shared here tonight.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we currently sit on about 9 acres.
I think we're on about 4.
Okay.
I'm sure we're on about 4.
Yeah, so if we've got 70 to 80 acres to include the fields and parking and things like that, it should get us a pretty nice footprint of a complex.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, Fred, right? Yep. With what we're talking about here and roughly the amount of fields that we think we would need, would that, with soccer and football, would that fit on an 80-acre plot? That's my question. Yeah, with the parking, that's my question.
Well, football and soccer,
No, sure.
I'm just saying,
use same
they
field,
know, so I was
so,
just asking if that would be,
cause that Grand Park, they run,
They don't,
they'll have like 4 or 5 fields being soccer, 4 or 5 fields being flag football, 4 or 5 fields being lacrosse,
that's,
all going at the same time.
that's a 1.
I wouldn't wanna speak to.
We couldn't, obviously couldn't get it, I'm just saying, is that sufficient, 80 acres, is that like a, for what we're talking about, would that work, or?
So,
Right there.
Pardon me?
Chris.
so, this happens to be, Randy can't see what I'm pointing at.
Okay.
This happens to be the site in Brownsburg that our firms had conceptualized. So this is the 12 diamonds we mentioned, 6 for
Okay.
baseball, 6 for softball. Now, they were looking for 600 parking spaces, and I'm getting to your acreage question, right? So they wanted 600 parking spaces here, all west of what was a legal drain, or is a legal drain.
Sure.
That's about 50 acres
Okay.
to get 600 parking spaces and those 12 diamonds, the maintenance farm, that kind of thing. So that's about what cohabitating with 12 diamonds looks like. This, I mentioned to you earlier, was 4 football, soccer fields, kind of at a championship level, and then 4 just practice areas that would be kind of flex for soccer, lacrosse, rugby. These are actually tied together. You see the cross field
Sure.
there, so that's rugby sized.
So is that about an 80-acre parcel?
This was 90 total, but what's deceiving about that is a lot of that's floodplain.
Yeah.
That we kind of made on there, so it's diminished the efficiency of the
Sure.
land. So can it fit on 75 to 80 acres? I do think you could get all of the program that we
That's
talked about.
great, that's what I was just saying, I was looking for some, so we're not wasting time here.
Yeah, that's close. Great. Thinking about how parking works with, matter of fact, if you cost model that whole project, your single biggest line item would be pavement. Rivaled only second to earthwork and stormwater, so infrastructure.
Okay.
So thinking about how much needs to be paved, how much is just stabilized lawn, how you want to, whether some in gravel is acceptable, all those kinds of questions are going to be really important in cost modeling.
But you're saying it is a doable on that size piece of land, that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's what I was looking, thanks, Fred.
Yeah. We heard lacrosse, what is the sport, is that a real thing and not a real thing?
I've been trying to get it at the high school since I was a freshman, but the athletic director said since there's no youth program, we'd have to create a youth program, and then we'd also have to create another girls sport, because you have to have an equal number of guys in girls sports.
Mhm.
So with this, you'd be able to create that, plus club lacrosse is huge, especially in Indiana and just over the border.
It's becoming bigger and bigger.
Like last year, there's club programs that wanna be out in this area, cause no one else is, cause they can't. Cause at Crown Point, they got two fields, two football fields and then the dome. Dome's too expensive to rent out, and they have their coaches come, and then in the summer, there's always soccer on the two outside fields.
So your point, I think, as I'm hearing it, is this site could be a destination for other folks
Yeah.
to land
There-
across, not necessarily your
Yeah.
local
Right.
residents.
Well,
There goes the parking lot.
More space in the park. He plays for Munster Lacrosse. We practice in a field that, if it rains good for an hour, you step down in the water to your ankles.
Yeah.
And with lacrosse, you get ground balls. It's hard to scoop up a ball that's in 2 inches of water. You can have local teams come and practice here if they're synthetic or just better drained.
And with it being in the spring, it wouldn't interfere with football or any of like soccer or that field.
I think with something like this too, that would be good to, since we don't have like a
Yeah.
lacrosse program, we don't have a youth, like a volleyball or something like that, if we could get
Yeah.
somebody, coming in, renting the field, playing lacrosse, like, you might have a little guy out there, 6 years old, playing baseball going, well, that looks fun, why can't we try something like that, and maybe
Because
go
I
from
know
there, yeah.
from Hanover alone, that at least at the high school level, everyone's like, I wish I would have had this opportunity to play as a kid. I actually knew a couple of kids when I was in the Crown Point youth program that were from Hanover too. So it's not like I'm the only kid from Hanover that's playing it already.
Actually, on the Munster team, there's, 2 to 3 other boys that are from Hanover that are playing in Munster because there's no program down here.
When does the lacrosse season run?
Spring,
So interacts with soccer?
yeah. No,
No.
baseball, actually.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like it.
When soccer?
Soccer,
Summer?
in the past, it's been spring and fall.
Spring and fall.
They're doing soccer now, I see.
I'm just trying to
They need,
visualize.
I mean, what we've done.
You
in the
could-
past
you could
has
time
been
it out.
the Spring
Yeah,
and fall.
I mean, let's, that sample, you have 2 fields going with, soccer, 1 field going with lacrosse.
In the springtime as well, we have flag football,
So,
and we
Killing it.
run that, just on Sundays.
yeah.
We practice hour before the game, and then the game's at an hour. So, just scheduling wise, so
Yeah,
just
just
scheduling wise.
get it going. What we got?
How much for a dome?
Fred, I do have one quick question.
Yeah.
Just real quick. The dome that they have in Crown Point, are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Sparta Dome? What does it usually, just a quick question, what does it usually take to encompass a 2 full field dome, acreage-wise, in parking?
2 full soccer fields?
No, 2 full softball fields.
Baseball field.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I was just curious, because I was gonna tell Randy that extra 40 acres in a few more years, they could put a dome up for baseball and softball, correct, that's true.
So we just,
Training.
Training facility, wintertime, I mean, we rent the
anybody
Sparta
ever been
Dome
to
now.
Finch Creek Fieldhouse? Is
For
that
anybody, training.
someplace you've been?
Yeah.
That's got 1 indoor, and we have the plans for that. Didn't do the architecture, we did the site, but. I
For
can-
one field?
How big
Well,
are,
it's got, 8 or 10 basketball courts, but it's got 1 softball that they do play indoor games.
Where's this at?
Noblesville.
Wow.
how big is the 3 enclosed fields at Grand Park?
Enormous, airplane.
Yeah, I know.
So,
Well,
I
that's
can,
not-
I can call it up, I can't do it on the Wi-Fi
I
here,
mean,
but,
because if you took out the one with 2 of the fields, you could have a full softball and baseball field.
oh, sure, yeah,
And
that is an enormous building.
yes,
Yeah, that's an enormous building. Probably bigger, just being honest, probably bigger than this community would want or need to.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and I mean that to sound disrespectful if it did, but that would be a big challenge. We didn't talk about basketball, local basketball program.
They use Hanover Junior Wildcats.
Andrew Wildcats.
You two over there, yeah?
Girls.
You got Steve, myself, Chris, were you involved?
I'm coaching right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many teams, how many kids in the program?
Oh,
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
There's
there's.
a lot.
Yeah, because between the boys.
Field house,
Not
a
to
field house
mention
and
the
two
wrestling
full
program.
gymnasiums going
Yeah.
all at the same
Yeah.
time.
How many courts is that?
1, 2, 3, 4.
3, 4, 5, 6,
6, yeah,
6,
yeah.
Six courts, what?
4 hours straight, right?
Yeah,
6
because
four
the
hours
field
straight
house,
for
the
games?
east and the-
What's that, I'm sorry?
6 courts for games?
Yeah.
Yes,
Big one, though.
at a time.
Okay.
Big Jim?
Yeah.
And obviously the same games or the same courts for practice, or do you not use all of?
We
3 days a
rotate.
week, they share an hour,
Okay.
or they go an hour.
They
Yeah.
still
Half
only get
court.
half a court.
Only get half the court, yeah.
Tim's worked on several field house projects with both public and private. I think that would be in the scope of kind of making a feasibility study happen. Obviously, buildings are more expensive than site work, so there's a balance there, but when you're thinking about economic development, that can be a part of it. Are there questions that you, Tim, might have for them with that in mind?
No, I mean, number of kids, what about the surrounding areas, Crown Point, everybody else? I mean, is there big competition? Are they,
Again, it's all held in-house
Mhm.
until we get to your 6th grade and then
okay, and then it goes into
CYO,
school?
we're in school stuff.
Mhm.
But just like soccer, it's all held in-house.
What about, club ball in the summer?
Don't have it.
Nothing here?
You gotta
For
go.
which
No, they
sport?
usually go to
Basketball.
Hammond, like, if they wanna play club ball, that new facility in Hammond.
Right,
Most of the kids that, I don't wanna have dad coaching them,
right.
dad coordinating, they'll go over there if they're still enough, or find some other double A, whatever they call it. There is the Rick Larsen wrestling, which shares the Hanover facility too, I don't know, so it's just another
Wrestling?
resource that way, you might be interested in using the basketball facility or whatever.
What about volleyball? Volleyball's huge down by Indy, but,
We used to have it, we used to have the boys volleyball and stuff like that, and they did away with it when they grew up, because we didn't have football until
Recent?
2014.
okay.
2011 is when the Junior Wildcats program started, and then the high school brought the football program back in 2014.
I don't know, I mean, just visually, I mean, thinking about it, I think that, I don't know, I want to speak to you with the soccer program, but it might have to start out as a town rec program if you wanted to start a volleyball over there.
They have volleyball courts up at Lemon Lake.
I know Crown Point has like a rec program, they do like right off the square, there's that like 1 or 2 like volleyball courts
Yeah.
like in-house.
Most volleyball club programs it's Diamond Elite, and they run out of, like, up in Maryville, there was the Digs, but that closed. There's, Ultimate Volleyball that runs out of Crown Point, so they find different places.
They
to
rent
go.
their own facilities, right?
Yeah.
Well, they rent the dome. They
Yeah.
do it on like Wednesday nights in the dome. But it's like a 21 and over league.
But you guys are saying just internally, Cedar Lake, you have 6 courts going 4 games a day
For basketball?
for basketball?
No,
No, 6 courts are running
for 4 hours.
4 hours.
4 hours a day.
So, and they're not like full basketball games.
24 games a day, on a Sunday only,
24 games a day is what I'm saying.
on Sunday only.
Yeah.
And practice.
Practice is 3 days a week.
3 days a week for
Mhm.
3 hours.
It is, yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday,
you really hope to
Wednesday.
get the 11 AM game, so you get in and get a parking spot.
We don't have to have it tonight, but if you guys can pull the data, just how many kids we're talking about, just to confirm that.
Yeah.
that'd be helpful.
Well, there's usually 10 on each team,
See if I can find
7,
out.
8 teams in each division.
He was supposed to be, the president was supposed to be here.
It's a bad night to miss.
Yeah.
But I had heard somewhere last year.
Program anybody.
No, no field house for you.
400 kids.
I'd say 400 or 500 sounds about right.
It's like shove that money this,
He can respond to me.
Lose, you lose.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we often have seen though is that we'll build one or the other first, right, to generating, especially if it's a money play, it's generating revenue. The Finch Creek Fieldhouse that Fred mentioned in Noblesville built the Fieldhouse part first, and then now they have the outdoor fields are gonna follow as it comes. And sometimes we've seen the opposite. This one, well, that's Brunswick too, isn't it? That's the other option. But this one was gonna build the fields first, and then as it developed over time, they're gonna build the building later.
Yeah, I mean, but just about every organization here rents the field house they hand over to, or utilizes it its own way, so, I mean, some kind of indoor training facility would definitely be something that would be utilized by just about every program, in this town. And outside programs for local, other communities who, there's just not enough spaces around here for indoor complexes or winter training.
A lot of the conversations you hear about in indoor center today revolve around things about what your, say your local medical partners, what their interests are or willingness to be involved in sports medicine, training, have a clinic on site. Those are important questions that'll come up. How you're cohabitating, if you are, with public and private entities, and that's obviously not to be determined.
Sparta Dome in Crown Point, Fred, that was built by two doctors for their kids for soccer. Now, they leased the property from the town. They still own it. We rent it for my softball team. It costs us $200 an hour.
Yep.
And great facility.
Yep.
But they also have a deal with the city where the public gets to use it as a walking track every day.
Yep.
The dome generates money.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say, because normally the last piece of that puzzle is the unexpected, which is community center, that you get a lot of senior activity,
Yep.
and you got walking tracks, and the ability to keep that active during the day, during the week.
Right.
That can really be a part of a play that a community can invest in, or it can make it warranted to invest in. Any sports we missed or didn't cover or glossed over?
Ultimate Frisbee.
Somebody said something about Boy Scouts with pickle. I don't know.
Pickleball?
Pickleball.
I don't know what that is.
Randy mentioned pickleball, didn't you, Randy?
I don't know what that is.
I kind of make fun of pickleball, but people seem to like it. I don't understand it.
Pickleball,
A lot of the
right?
teachers.
pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the country.
Yeah.
They said about 300 in basketball.
Yeah, 320 is what he just told me.
To me, it's like modern horseshoes.
Yeah.
Said 320?
Yeah, 320 on basketball.
You guys have a lot of kids that will play a sport every season, so some of
Yeah.
those kids are gonna be the same. They're gonna go from one to the other to the other.
And that goes all the way up to the high school.
I think on my Mighty Mites team, which I had 16 boys, 5 of them were going to wrestling, and 10 of them were going to basketball. And 2 of them just didn't know what they were doing yet.
So when pickleball comes up, so we retrofit tennis courts a lot in parks where, 30 years ago, you actually did see adults playing tennis at a park. You might have 3 or 4 courts. Those have grown weeds in them. There's so few people on them. So pickleball is a dramatically fast-growing sport, especially for older folks. So this happens to be one image of that. If you've not seen it played, I jokingly in the office call it badminton for seniors. It's very compressed. It's in a net that's similar in height to tennis. All the surfaces and finishes and striping are all very similar in the technical side of the specifications of that. But it is really popular. It's a great workout. It's low intensity, so it's not like you're, blowing out ACLs or what have you. But it is definitely growing. There have been some, I'm not saying your community is gonna be this way. We have literally had sports projects get approved or denied because seniors fill a room like this and are excited about a project. I think it would be silly not to think about that in the reflection of an overall campus.
They could be the
Probably got a very small
pickleball capital of Northwest Indiana.
There you go. Destination.
We definitely, Tim and I worked on a project at the Mount Vernon schools. So they had 10 tennis courts. We did a renovation project, I think it was 2.5 years ago. COVID screws me up here. So a year before COVID, we put 10 tennis courts back and we put 4 pickleball next to it. The school did that. It's the first high school client that we had that had done that. It seemed kind of silly. We actually had some patrons come to the meeting and say, why would you do that? And they said, well, we're getting a lot of calls with people saying, look, I live in this community, I put my kids through this school system, but you're asking for a lot of money to build new facilities, and I'd like to be able to use some of them. They now have people driving from an hour and a half away to come to pickleball leagues because those don't exist, right? You have to rent them often. So the school built them, and now there's people there all the time. It's been a nice benefit for them.
Yeah, they do have one.
They just built one in Crown Point, a pickleball facility.
So whether Randy likes it or not, it's not really relevant.
No, you
Brady's almost old enough to start.
Yeah, I got it.
So let me flash through these images here, and we'll kind of try to wrap up with you guys. So what's the process of scoping look like, right? If you're doing feasibility analysis, you've seen a few of these come up. So these are early images where we're thinking about, does program fit on this site? Just the question that you asked, Mark. What physically fits? What's the carrying capacity of the land that we have to think about marrying it with the program? So these might be loose diagrams that turn into a digital two-dimensional plan that talks about that carrying capacity. Once you kind of mature past that, you start to get to, okay, if I tighten this up to exactly how many parking spaces are we talking about and exactly what size are those diamonds, where are there buildings, are there not buildings, do I have an indoor center or not? In this case, you see some wet ponds in the corner and some dry basins in the upper part, so Tim will kind of work through this. Where does the stormwater need to be on this particular site, right? That will then typically mature, and this is that same image on the upper right. So these are three-dimensional. Well, that's really small for you, isn't it? See if I can zoom in. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So we're then basically turning that same two-dimensional image into just a 3D massing model. So this isn't an intense exercise. It's just getting it to be at least conceptually accurate, so that you can kind of sense how does that look and feel. So these are just different vantage points of that same project, so seeing it from different angles and different views. So that's that kind of that third step when you're trying to communicate to patrons that might not be able to read that two-dimensional plan that we talked about. How's that going to feel and how's that going to look? And then the last kind of round is when you're going to go out to announce, right? You're going to have press conferences, press releases. You're going to start talking to vendors and donors. You're going to take that facility and make that a little more photoreal typically, and kind of how it lands in its context in that place. That's typically the progression of how the drawings work. It doesn't take photoreal three-dimensional drawings to do every project. It's really only what you need. You got to right size the technical study just like you right size the program for the facility itself. All right, are there questions that you guys had? This was the bones of what we were trying to get accomplished. Is there anything that didn't come up tonight?
Can you put like walking paths
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
people that can come and just walk when it's nice out?
Yep, so the image that I brought does not show this, but this graphic that we have for Brownsburg in its full building has playgrounds. It had 2.5 miles of trails inside that 90 acres. You definitely want to make it an asset that's usable, not just on weekends and nights, but throughout the day.
Public pools.
So those aren't really common. If you think you're having trouble finding umpires, try to find lifeguards.
Yeah.
So what you see happening in water play is much more splash pad. So think zero depth. Time, you can come on and off. It's recycled water that's treated. There's not a lot of upkeep to it. So if you're going to do any kind of public water, it's probably not a pool. It's probably a splash pad.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of splash pads
No.
around.
I know we have to drive to St. John.
Mhm.
Yeah. We went a couple of years ago, I think. So it was-
Where about is the land south of town?
Between Parish and Morris off 155th.
I can't give you my screen.
So it's actually.
No.
Yeah, no, you'll have access off of Morris, you'll have access off of Parish, and
Just south of our house.
Randy said he'd share it.
So I printed just the exhibit that Marlon gave us of where the land is.
encroaching.
I didn't
on-
think it would be like, you know, I thought we did a table and there might be enough of these on the ground to.
Yeah, if you drive down Parish, by the Lindsway subdivision,
Yeah.
there's a large parcel off to your east. That's the parcel the town owns. It's Parish Avenue, and, like Adam said, 150 feet.
The old flea market right now, somewhere here. It's just,
I was wondering, so this is where I was.
Well, you do a couple.
The house.
Put a door in or something. Is there anything?
We got a couple questions, Fred, for, and this is probably more for Randy, not so much you guys.
All right.
Maybe you can chime in and help answer, I don't know. Randy, quick question, I know you mentioned to me before that you guys didn't wanna run or know how to or want to run a baseball or softball or maybe football, soccer program. How do you foresee this in the future as being? Is this something that you would want to hire, like Crown Point has a park director that handles a lot of that, and then they hire people under that, or is this something that you want us as, softball and baseball people to run on our own? Is there, if that is the case, is there like, a lease agreement, or how's that gonna work? Do you have, I mean, I know this is all preliminary, and this is just the first meeting, but how do you see this working?
Well, that's a good question. Those are good questions, Mark. I don't think the town wants to be in the business of operating individual leagues. I think that where the town's interest in this will come in is obviously, long-term sustainability. So, what you talked about in having a parks department that has some oversight of the facilities is probably something that will be needed.
Okay.
But, as far as managing the individual leagues and what you do with the fields that are allotted to you, I don't think there'll be a lot of desire for micromanagement of that.
Okay,
If I can make a quick comment.
Sure, go ahead.
So what is common when you see joint partnerships with towns and leagues is typically, you'll see the town try to maintain the common areas, and everything inside the fence, the playing field, is gonna be by the league. That is almost a given. I mean, you rarely see the
Well,
town
they
saying,
provide
"I'll
the
maintain
property."
your diamond," right? It's normally the common areas outside of that fence.
gotcha.
That doesn't mean that Randy and the council.
Right, right.
I gotta be honest with you, just, because we talked about this, what I proposed is that site is its own separate board, like of people that manage that, and the rest of the board that makes decisions for Little League is a separate entity. So whoever's gonna be in charge of running that site will not, so they have time to be over there and not be, you know, I think you need to separate the two, like, you know, who's running the league versus who's running the site, if it's gonna be to that scope, you know, you wanna make sure.
We're still gonna
They're
have
not
to
neglecting
sustain our
their
own
own
sites.
sites.
That's our dilemma. We still wanna sustain our own sites, but yet we need the extra facility, and with the taxpayers' dollars, the town provides that facility for us to use. You know, that's the question being that if you go to synthetic, if he wants to go to synthetic products, obviously the maintenance would be way less.
Yeah, the cost paradigm, like, and Randy talked about capacity, bonding capacity, and what that might look like in the short term. You know, $5 million is a lot of money. That synthetic construction, it's not very many fields,
Right.
just being honest, right? We talked about the money, the dollars and cents a minute ago.
Yeah, 5 million anymore is a drop in the bucket with any of these things, but it's conservatively today, just today, what our financial advisor was comfortable quoting me. Now, that's, again, it's a conservative estimate, and there's a lot of different mechanisms that can be put in play to facilitate larger investment, but I wanted to kind of lay out what that seed money was that we felt pretty comfortable that we have in our back pocket ready to go, should we get this kicked off soon.
I just don't wanna see a situation develop where, and I hate to say this, but, you know, you go to a municipal-owned park, you yourself probably have seen it, Fred, how they maintain it.
Sure.
I don't wanna go to a park and say, look, we got a plan, they never cut the grass, they never do this or that. My hope would be that you could work together and make sure that what we have for these kids is really nice, and keep it that way, and try to work together to make sure the maintenance is done, so that you can say, hey, you know what, Cedar Lake has an awesome athletic complex. You go to Crown Point, and it's like you're battling, because they got canceled because they got no maintenance guys to do the rec program at nighttime. Because one field got wet, there's one guy running the program, and the maintenance crew gets off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and go home. They've canceled 10 games in a 4-week period because the drop of field got on the water, and the guy running the athletic program there, he's one man. He tells me that the mayor of Crown Point, he says it falls on deaf ears. They got a maintenance crew that goes home at 3 o'clock and nobody takes care of it. So what good is it to have that if you're not being able to use it for your kids?
Randy, are there any items you want to put on the table here before we close up tonight?
No, Fred, I was really happy with the conversations there and everybody participating, honestly and openly, and keeping the vision big. It's hard. A change like this is hard. But this is one of these things whose time has come. There's a great opportunity in front of us, and I'm looking forward to, after this meeting, Tim and Fred, when you guys kind of sit down and review this, putting together a strategy of next steps, and getting to work on those first steps that we need to take to really start moving this project forward. I want to see it take off. I'm probably over anxious to see it take off, but there's no time like now, so let's get to work on it.
Thanks, Randy, for realizing that the need is there. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, and again, I was just listening to the citizens of the community, who've expressed the same things that you all expressed, and this could be a heck of a world-class facility where the kids of Cedar Lake can hang their hat on it and have something that they can call their own for many years to come.
Thank you for making time for us tonight.
Yeah.
I know you're busy.
Thank you guys for coming and representing us.
Randy, I hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. Fred, Tim, again, I always appreciate your guys' expertise. We've had a number of stops and starts with projects over the years, and I feel like we're on the cusp of getting a few things going that are gonna be game changers, this being one of them. So, look forward to sitting down with you guys and putting a plan together here.
Okay, thanks, Randy.
Appreciate it.
Keep us posted on the meeting, Randy, all right?
What's that?
Keep us posted on